right, good afternoon, folks. Thanks for coming out. I'll just take questions. I have nothing ahead of time.
What did you say when you turned around and spoke to the families?
Well, we discussed the fact that, really, they were an intricate part from our standpoint of this case coming to fruition in the sense that they kept on the case. Obviously, there were different administrations over the course of this investigation. And I sincerely believe that because of their persistence in this case, it ultimately led to a lot more pressure, a lot more resources being dedicated, and ultimately the arrest of my client. And then I also added the fact that, going into this, most of us just know what we know from reading in the press. I've reviewed so many pages of discovery. I really feel like I know these individuals. That's what I told them. I really do think, even though I've never met them, I really do feel like I know them and I've met them. And I just want to know.
Is this a prepared statement? You went off the cuff?
I have, quite frankly, I have no idea. And I say that because many people, the press and other people, wanted to know if he was going to speak this morning. Up until he spoke, I did not know if he was going to speak.
Can you sort of reiterate his emotion and what you heard him say as he said heartbreak?
My recollection is, you can order the record obviously, my recollection is that he apologized, he acknowledged for what that's worth, he acknowledged that his words won't mean much, and I think that's understandable to the families and the victims. That's in essence what he said.
Can you speak about what you've come to understand about Rex Heuermann over the last few years?
No, I'm the one that has to be delivered
You've
back.
spoken to him more than most.
No, I've spoken to him definitely the most. He's an interesting fella, I'll use that word. Interesting. There's definitely two parts of Rex Heuermann. I wasn't there on any of these murders, but I've seen the discovery, I've seen the evidence, and obviously he's admitted his involvement to these crimes. So I haven't seen that Rex Heuermann personally. I've only seen the Rex Heuermann personally over the last 3 years. He comes across to me, and I think many other people, as a normal, everyday person. That really isn't the case.
Disgusting.
Because normal, everyday people don't murder a woman. So there's a real dichotomy. And this is really, in my career, since 1992, it's really the first time I've seen that type of dichotomy in a crime.
Mr. Brown.
Yeah, I can't, unfortunately, I am prohibited from getting into many of the details on that. I will indicate, as I did at the time of the plea, one of the requirements is for him to participate with the behavioral science and insurance.
We see each other again.
No additional prosecution.
Mr. Brown, we've now heard what the DA has to say about him personally. Sorry. We've heard what the DA has to say about him, what the judge has to say about him personally. What do you have to say about him personally?
We just discussed that earlier. I'm not going to say any derogatory comments about a client. That would be ethical. As I indicated, I've seen that there's two parts of Rex Heuermann. The one part of Rex Heuermann is what we all know about now. And unfortunately, you haven't seen the graphics that I've seen in terms of the discovery report. These acts were horrific, and that's really not giving it its due credit. They were horrific. That's the Rex Heuermann that is responsible for the 8 murders. The person that I've been dealing with from the inception, July of 2023, is as normal as they come when I'm talking to him and having conversations. So that's what I can tell you, and that's where I reiterated really the dichotomy between these two personalities.
Did you ever struggle representing a serial killer? I guess that's what people would want to know.
On this case in particular, because this is my only serial killer case. No. You know, from a personal standpoint, this is what I do. I represent people accused of crimes. I've handled 25 murders over my career. Some were double murders. Now this is really much different than any of those, but it's what we're trained to do. Regardless of the serious nature of the crime, the horrific nature of the crime, it's what we're trained to do. And listen, it's a good question. If I felt that I could not put my full effort into it, I would have stepped aside. I would have stepped aside. But I hope you folks realize, from a defense standpoint, the defense team, we did everything we can to zealously represent our client. We filed motions that were really important. We had some significant hearings that made case law, unfortunately not in our favor, in the state of New York, and it's going to be cited across this nation. So we were zealous advocates. So that's a long-winded answer to your question. No, there were a lot of ups and downs on this case, personally representing him, in terms of the magnitude of discovery, the pressure, the press, the attention, all those things. It's a lot, but I never thought for a second moment I can't do this. No.
Would you characterize this as the most difficult and challenging moment of your career?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, representing a murder case is always very challenging and difficult. This case is really off the charts. We'll talk about that. From a work ethic standpoint, right? Because, you know, in terms of the discovery and the amount of work, you know, we were working at times 7 days a week. I'm 59. But we have a point. We have a case. So, yes, very challenging. And then again, it's unheard of, really, in our world out here in Long Island. So it was very difficult. And then you also have the new technology, which is, you don't have that many cases where all of a sudden they throw out this technology. They throw out, meaning they're using technology. Well, now you got to challenge it. That's what we did. And we learned, not that I wanted to, but we learned a tremendous amount. This course was phenomenal in terms of that Friday hearing. We had to educate ourselves in a short amount of time. It was just as amazing, very efficient. That's a nice way to put it, right? And we did what we had to do.
Mr. Brown, where is Rex going to be serving his prison sentence, and when will he be transferred?
So, what happens in the state correctional facility is they put you into initially the reception area. It used to be what's called downstate Michigan, but I don't think they go there anymore. The reception facility, and then from there they'll start funneling him out to whatever appropriate facility, Department of Corrections feels is appropriate. You know, a lot of people have always asked over the course of this, is there any preference, and can the judge send you to a specific facility? The answer is clearly no. In New York State, unlike the federal system, judges don't have any role or direction in terms of where you're placed, other than in certain cases like programs, for instance, it's called the SHOP program, or the Willard, which is a drug treatment program. Short of that, obviously that's not going to apply in this case. It's up to the Department of Corrections, and I would expect there would be a maximum security prison because he's now convicted and sentenced on 7 drugs.
Can we go back to the dichotomies of the almost like two people you can compartmentalize or what have you? Do you believe there is a part of him that is genuinely sorry, or do you think this is just words?
I don't know. You know, I try to. I hope he is. After doing this for 35 years, I hope that I'm a good reader of people and I can judge how they express themselves and if it's sincere. I don't know. I would hope he would. I can say that over the course of representing him, he has absolutely shown emotion, and it's genuine emotion. His genuine sincerity is expressed. It's right over the course of my representation. So I expect it's sincere. And I really think he wants to find out triggers for why he did what he did.
Have you ever seen the
That's
demonic
beyond,
side
that's
of
way beyond, you know, my pay grade. It's not my world. But I do think there's a sincerity was sick yesterday. He's somewhat of a character. And I did kind of expect that he would say more. But that was his choice.
A lot of the victims families talked about the money that the family made from the documentary. Very angry about that. Did you address that? What was your reaction?
Yeah, I completely understand. Let's just be clear. The defense team has nothing to do with this documentary, right? We're representing him on the criminal case. There are periphery people who are involved in what you're talking about, and obviously they did whatever they wanted to do, and there was a lot of, apparently, from what you reported in the press, a tremendous amount of money that was made. Does that sit well with me? No, it doesn't sit well with me. We're not party to that. We're not privy to that. We're not involved in that. We had a very focused goal, which is defending an individual charged with some serious crime. I certainly appreciate what one of the victims, the mother and the aunt, indicated about this loophole in the law. I completely understand that. It kind of doesn't make too much sense that people can profit from a crime. I agree with that. But all vote.
And what is the fight over? Is it a fight over the course of the past couple years?
Yeah, well, I think that's a good question, and I think it's, in particular, it's about what you do. So, responding to the remorse or lack of remorse, definitely showed emotion and cried when we discussed the actions. So, I think there's some sincerity about it.
Have you ever cried when he was admitting to you that he'd done it?
Yes. When we discussed it. Now listen, does that make things better? No, it doesn't. But the question was showing remorse, and yeah, I do.
Was there a point of no return in discovery where you could no longer say there was any doubt that Rex was the guy?
Well, we may be confusing a couple of things. So the burden, I mean, just from a law standpoint, the burden is always on the prosecution. So whether somebody says they're guilty, whether the evidence may show that they're guilty, ultimately the prosecution, the people of the state of New York, the DA's office, have to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So if you're asking me, as I'm analyzing the evidence, did there come a point in time, putting aside what we discussed, my client and I, is this evidence overwhelming? I think once we received an unfavorable decision on the Fry hearing, and we knew that the nuclear DNA was coming in, that was a big factor. That's a very strong piece of evidence, coupled with the planning document, the manifesto, whatever you want to call it. Now, we had a lot of, Ms. Koish and I and Chase, we had a lot of discussions about issues with that document, and there were holes in that document. But that was a very damning document. Anything else? You good?
Just one last thing about the remorse, if I may. You can say that he cried over the fact, over the actions. Is that a reference to the? And it also said the evidence it seemed was horrific. I was trying to make sure if I do equate the two that I'm right about this. The crime was over just how horrific the actions were. Is that what you're saying?
Sorry.
So are you saying that he cried over the actions he took, which you also said those actions were horrific?
Oh, they are horrific. Yeah.
Is it the horrific nature that he was crying about?
We didn't specifically address are you crying over the fact that it's so horrific or the fact that you killed a woman. But my point was, the question was about whether or not he expressed remorse. And my response was, I actually saw him express this extreme emotion about what he did. Okay? All right, folks. Thanks.
Thank you.